Hi everyone, it's Jessica and thank you for coming by my channel today. It is December 25th, Merry Christmas, and that means it is also the 25th of the month and time for another Makers with Heart Mystery Envelope Challenge. So in December, my friend Julie is the one who sent out the envelope, and she sent us these 3 pieces of pattern paper from the Four Seasons Winter Collection from Close to My Heart. And her rules were pretty simple. She said to document a Christmas memory or tradition using these papers, and each pattern had to be represented somehow in the creation, and we could add any other products that we would like to finish off the project. So Christmas tradition. All right, so I'm going to use these 3 photos from a couple of years ago of my kids who are just putting the candy into our little advent calendar. It's a little house with a bunch of drawers in it, and they absolutely love this tradition because it guarantees them a piece of candy every single day. I think next to the actual presents part of Christmas, it might be one of their favorite things about Christmas time. So since I need to include every single pattern somehow in my creation, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these 4x6 pieces of pattern paper and I'm going to cut them entirely up into little 1/2-inch strips. So I'm using the 4-inch side. And then I am going to need probably more than this, because what I'm thinking I'm going to do is that I'm going to fold them in half and I'm going to place them around in a circle to make a wreath on my page. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my paper pack that is the same paper pack. That way I can cut more pieces of this paper and have enough of my little strips. The other thing I was thinking is the piece that she sent me on that back side there that had the white and evergreen stripes to it. When I cut it on the 4-inch mark, I want my stripes to go in a different direction. So, yep, I just cut myself a couple more papers and also used the 3 that Julie sent in the envelope. And here you can see how I did that so that the stripes were going in the other direction. Hopefully this is enough. I end up having a couple of extra strips left over, and I did use them to make a Christmas card, which I will share on my Facebook page if you want to follow the link down below. Okay, I'm going to build this layout on a piece of Capri cardstock because that is one of the coordinating colors for this paper pack. And before I start, I do want to add some splatters just for some fun interest. So I'm using the Dana Wakley white gloss spray, my Capri colored shimmer brush pen, and for both of those, I just shake them up and then I open them up and I use something to tap against it, and it creates some fun splatters. So there's not a whole lot, but just enough to kind of give it a little bit of something extra. And I don't know, I really like adding splatters. Okay, using a trusty dinner plate here, or actually it's like a little salad plate, to draw my circle onto my page for the wreath. Every time I need a circle, it never fails. I wander around the house looking for something that's the right shape, and always the answer is just a plate. So I need to just head to the kitchen next time because plates are the perfect size for adding circles and crafting. All right, so I've drawn a circle onto my page, and I'm going to use that as a guide. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of adhesive to the back side of these strips. So I'll fold it in half. And then put a little bit of tape adhesive to the back, and then you can see, just to make sure that the edges don't kind of hang off the page, that I am bringing the end of that strip inside my circle a little bit. And it was pretty easy to do. It took me a couple minutes to go all the way around the page. But I followed a pattern. I did, when I got to the end of my circle, of course, my pattern didn't quite match up because it just didn't. But I do end up putting a photo over that spot. So hopefully no one will ever, analyze my page and be like, well, she follows a pattern all the way around until this one spot here. But it was pretty easy to do, just kind of stuck them around. It did get a little tricky on when I was really doing some curved parts, trying to keep it so that they were the same, distance stuck inside the circle. But so it's not perfect when I go around and make my wreath, but it's close enough, and I think it'll work. You can see here my circle is just a little bit wonky, but I think that's okay. By the time I add some embellishments to it, it's not going to really be a big deal. So my thought was that I would put my photos like this. I've got 3 of them, and I did print them at a 3x3 size, and then I whited them in some white cardstock. I do want to add a little bit of stitching around the inside of that wreath just to kind of bring it all together. And I want to make a little guide for my holes that I'm going to poke for the stitching, because otherwise I know if I tried to just freehand a circle all the way around as a stitching guide, it would go terribly wrong. So I pulled the plate back out and did my best to kind of line it up. I did have to fuss with that a little bit just to make sure that I had an even circle all the way around. I did have to erase some of it and kind of start over a little bit, but I will spare you that. Basically, I just used the plate again to make sure that I had that circle as a stitching guide. Okay, I'll put a piece of foam back behind my page, and then using my piercing tool, I just go around. I probably put my holes maybe like a 1/4 of an inch apart, maybe 3/8 of an inch apart, just all the way around. And yeah, I'm going to do a stitch all the way, just like I said, to kind of bring it together so it doesn't look like these pieces of paper are sort of floating on the page. All right, so I grabbed some of my DMC embroidery floss. This is just a color green that I thought matched well with the evergreen color that is in this paper. And normally I don't stitch with all 6 strands, but for this one I really wanted to give it some bulk, so I did use all 6 strands. And I am going to do a chain link stitch. So I'll do my best here to show you how that works. It is one of my favorite stitches to use. Just going to use a little bit of washi tape to secure that end piece. Now on the first stitch, I'm going to do just a normal straight back stitch. So you can see here I'm coming up one hole and going down the next. I'm going to repeat that in the same 2 holes. So that way I have created a double stitch in the same 2 holes. I hope that that makes sense. All right, and then that way this thickness will be the same as my chain link stitches. Okay, now on my second stitch, I'm going to come up the next available hole, pull my thread all the way through, and then I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to slide it underneath that stitch that I just made. And then I'm going to take the needle and put it back down the same hole that I originally came up. And I'll do that one more time to show you. Like I said, I was trying to hold it so that you could see, but I'm going to come up the next hole. Oh, maybe I'm not going to show you. I apologize. Come up the next hole, slide your needle under the stitch you created, and then go back down the same hole that you came up. And once I have all of that part done and I put my photos back on top of this wreath, I really start thinking about how I don't like the colors in the photos. I just think that the yellow in my son's shirt is really clashing with the pattern papers. So I decided to print the same photos again, only in black and white. And I actually never do that. And so I wasn't really sure how this would turn out, but I really like the way that it looks. And I think that it works for this particular layout just because that yellow was so bright and kind of obnoxious. And I felt like it was clashing with everything else that was going on the page. So I decided to be a little bit thrifty, and I just put my black and white photos on the back side of my original ones, and that way I had just a little bit of extra bulk to them. I do end up later, when I'm putting this page together, I put my photos on some foam tape, but it just was like, well, why cut another photo mat? I'll just flip it over and use it again. So all right, I've gone ahead and done a bunch of die cutting. I cut out some snowflakes here with my Snowflakes thin cuts. And then I've got a bunch of these little greenery pieces from this really fun card making stamp set. And I cut that out of pine. I had a couple of circles that I cut out of sage cardstock. One of my snowflakes didn't cut very well, and so I knew that I'm like, I'll just use it anyway, and I'll tuck it underneath one of the photos so you can't see the part that didn't cut. And then I'm just thinking I'll put some greenery, kind of tucking them around the top and the bottom of the photos and helping to create that wreath sort of look, you know, in addition to the papers. So I kind of fussed with it a little bit, moving some things around. I did, once I got it all into place too, then I was like, oh dear, now I have to glue it all down. And that's always like the tricky part, right? Like you get it exactly how you want it, but then you got to pick it up and you add glue to it and put it back down exactly where you had it before. So that part was a bit of a challenge, but it didn't take too long just to kind of place these different die cut pieces around where I thought that I would want them to go. I had originally cut just, how many did I cut? I cut 8 of these little greenery pieces. And then I thought, it would be kind of nice to have some more greenery poking out from underneath the photos, but I don't really want to get my die cut machine out again. And then I remembered the current December 2022 stamp of the month from Close to My Heart. And it's got these really fun forest animals on it, but it also has some nice greenery images on it. So then I decide that I'm going to stamp some of those pieces onto the page as well. And again, once I had made that decision, I was like, oh my gosh, now it's like all in the right spot, but I have to glue it and move everything to the side for the stamping. So I was a little bit nervous about that. Here, this is an older stamp set that I just had sitting on my desk. I'm going to stamp that little snowflake circle. And then here is where, like I said, I had the December stamp of the month sitting there, and I thought, oh, I could stamp some of those little greenery pieces. But oh dear, now I've got to like move everything. And so that part was a little bit tricky, but I made it work. Okay, so you can see I've already stamped a little bit here. I did, before I moved my photos, I just took a pencil and kind of marked underneath them so I could have an approximate idea of where those photos were going to be, and that helped me out in my stamping. But I'll do most of that off camera just because I really did want to put my head down right over top of it so that I could see what I was doing, and you guys don't need to see the top of my head. So here, everything is now stamped and glued down. And a lot of that still, the snowflakes and the pine greenery kind of sticks up a little bit and adds some nice dimension to it. Okay, so I think for my title, I am going to use the same stamp set. It kind of is geared towards a card. It says, wishing you lots of joy. But I think I'm going to stamp it for my title, but I want to use a different joy. So my thought is that I would use the simple serif uppercase alphabet stamp set and then the coordinating thin cuts. So I'm going to cut them out in pine cardstock, and then I'll use my Versamark ink and some white embossing powder to stamp with the stamp set over top of them. And that way it'll be like a white letter, but it'll have that evergreen shadow to it. And so that was a little bit tricky just because you can't really stamp these letters first and then put the die over top of them because you can't see to place it very well. So usually what I do when I use both the stamp set and the thin cuts together is I will cut the letters out first and then I will do the heat embossing. So just a little tricky here. You can see I kind of am going to take a little tool and very carefully try to pick up the letter without knocking any of the embossing powder off. And I really didn't. I just had to be careful, but it wasn't too hard to do. But yeah, so I just kind of carefully do that. And then as far as trying to heat emboss them, I was like, well, I don't want to use this tool because it's plastic and I'll probably melt it all over. So I did use my piercing tool to hold it in place. I just kind of popped it down, stuck it with my piercing tool you can see here, and held it in place on my desk while I ran my heating tool over it. I was a little worried I might set my desk on fire, but everything came out fine in the end. And I really love the look of that shiny white embossed letter with the green behind it. And then I apologize. I lost a little bit of footage here because I thought that I hit record, but I apparently was actually turning off my camera, not turning it on. So I stamped that sentiment from the stamp that says wishing you lots of, and then I put my joy letters down. I did stack them up with some additional cut letters so that they have a little bit more dimension to them. And then the last thing I'm going to do is take some silver glitter gems and scatter them around my page just for that final little bit of embellishment. And later, after I'm done filming this, I will put some journaling lines underneath the word joy and just kind of write real quick about how the kids love this Christmas tradition. Because like I said, it's a guaranteed piece of candy for the entire month of December, and my kids will pretty much do anything for candy. Ask them to clean their room? Sure, you can have a piece of candy. Works like a charm. So they were very excited. They love this tradition, and I was very happy to get it recorded. So thank you, Julie, for your rules for this month's mystery envelope. If you are not familiar with the Mystery Envelope Challenge, my friends in the Makers with Heart group and I take turns each month sending out an envelope with some different papers or rules or parts and pieces. And we all create a project using the same rules and pieces. And it's so fun to see what everybody comes up with and how everything looks different, even though we had the same materials and guidelines to work with. And we all release our videos on the 25th of the month, and so it is a surprise for us as well. I can't wait to go watch their videos. I will leave them all linked down below if you want to check out what the other ladies have done for this month's mystery envelope. And another quick thing, if you are watching this right around Christmas time in 2022, just know that Close to My Heart does have a full week of sales coming for Boxing Week. Every single day there is something different that is on sale, or a bunch of different items that are on sale, and then the next day they will be different things. So you want to check out that sale every single day in case there is something in there that catches your eye. All right, thank you so much for coming along to watch today, and I hope you have had a wonderful holiday. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye.